We shall start. Hello, everybody. I was going to say welcome to, but I don't actually have anything because this is just an off-the-cuff thing. I've realised I'm in quite a privileged position. Sometimes I get to speak to some really clever people in our profession. They share real kind of nuggets with me, and I thought it'd be nice if we could talk about it and share it to a wider audience. And that's obviously led me to message you, Jason. So, hello, how are you today?
Really good, Matt. Really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Good, good. Thanks for giving up your time to have a quick chat. So I put a post on LinkedIn a little while ago, just about contacting people on every anniversary that moved in. I think it was titled, "Will you need a listing in 5 years?" And for me, and obviously you know as well, estate agents generally we can be quite short-sighted in our hunting, and we
Yeah.
forget the long game. So I was just saying a real simple touch point is once a year to reach out to the people that have bought or sold a house to you. Say how are you getting on, and do you need any help? And you can do that in a load of ways. You can do that email via CRM, sending people letters, or of course the old-fashioned phone call. And you put a really interesting comment on there just regarding sales and lettings, because I think lettings is often quite forgotten about.
Yeah.
And so, if it's okay with you, I'd like to kind of discuss both with you.
Yeah.
Maybe just kind of start is why you, and I'm not going to do the old, do you think it's important? Because you clearly do. Why, kind of why it is so important to keep, regular contact with your sellers or your landlords.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of parts to that, Matt. So I'm very much I talk about relational estate agency versus transactional estate agency. We understand that most most agents are transactional. It's about that one deal, isn't it? Here's
Yeah.
the keys, see you later. And then, you're moving in 7 years. And actually only about 20% of those clients will come back to you.
Mhm.
Reason is when you ask those clients, well, why didn't you come back to me? Why didn't you use my services again? Well, because I never heard from you again. And actually I went to the agent that had the boards up in my street, or I went to the agent that had put a load of stuff through my door, maybe. So there's a reason for that, and that is because we are hardwired for instant gratification. So we're always just chasing the listing or the sale. We're chasing the next landlord. And actually, if we switch our minds to a relational model and the benefits of that, I'm going to be in this town, I'm building a business, and I'm going to be here for the next 20 years. It's a 20-year plan. And actually, if I decide to not be transactional, I decide to be relational in my approach to business, it's about the lifetime value of that client. And if I stay touch tight to that client, they're going to come back to me, they're going to choose me, but they're also going to refer and recommend me to their friends and their family and anybody else who needs that help from an agent who's got longevity in that town, that village, that city. So in simple terms, it's following a very, very simple numbers driven model. And what I learned with lettings is that building a lettings business is far less transactional because you have more contact with your landlord over a longer period of time, don't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, we've
So
done.
yeah, so it naturally happens with lettings, but actually my observation would be with letting agents, they still don't have a proper system that they follow that's just numerically driven. So I talked about 137, 10, 30, 90, 180, 365. And actually, when you break it down and you look at all the opportunities, so you've got every contact in your CRM system, they should be on a contact management nurture program. That means you stay in touch with them, you stay touch tight to them. And I keep saying this to my clients, every single applicant who registers with you, they're looking to buy in your town.
Yeah.
They can't all buy from you, but they're all going to buy in your
Right.
town.
Yeah, yeah. So they're going to become sellers in your town.
They're going to become sellers. They're going to become referrers and recommenders. They're going to become advocates of your model. So, I talk about values, share your values, why you choose to do what you do, not that you're an estate agent. What drives you. And then if you stay touch tight to those people and you talk about that a lot, but also you're the commentator, Chris Watkin talks about this better than anybody. be the commentator of your town, be the mayor of your town. And then if you just simply stay in touch with those people, you're not looking at them as sellers or landlords or contacts or just a number commodity. You're looking at them as an advocate for your town and potentially a future seller or a future landlord or a future buyer. And if that contact then decides to move in 7 years' time, and they always hear from Matt, and all the content from Matt is value content, who are they going to call?
Yeah. No,
They're going to call Matt. They're going to call Matt. So I learned this very early on in my lettings business when I grew that lettings business really quickly, 2007, 2008. Obviously everyone knows what happened then.
sure.
Uh, and we were predominantly up to that point, we were a sales business. And myself and my partner said, right, we can see what's going to happen here, and the sales market's just going to crash completely. So we need to now drive our lettings business. We need to have a strategy to stay tight with our tenants and our landlords. And the reason I say tenants as well is that in the UK, we tend to treat tenants like second-class citizens, don't we?
Yeah.
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 They're a pain in the arse. They always want stuff done, blah, blah, blah. We forget that statistically about 15% of those tenants are also property owners. They're probably also landlords. The vast majority of them aren't going to stay in rented accommodation forever. They're going to buy a property. So
Yeah.
they're going to need advice. They're going to need a mortgage. So how do we stay in touch with them? So again, a nurture program. And then when you dive into it, so break it down, your applicants, your buyers, your sellers, your landlords, and your tenants, and then look at a really simple numbered model that helps you stay in touch with them. Some of it is digital, but some of it is also good old-fashioned picking the phone up.
Sure. So if we separate it into the sales and the lettings, if we maybe start with the sales side of things because it's a bit simpler.
Yep.
I think on the post you wrote 30, 60, 90, 365. Can you just kind of give examples of what that looks like?
Yeah. Well, that in really simple terms, it means that they're getting something from Matt every 30 days. They're getting something digital every 30 days, your newsletter. Yeah. And then they're going to get a call they're going to get a call at 60 days and they're going to get a call at 90 days. Going back to your original post about anniversary valuations. So again, this is something that I say to agents, you've got to do this, you book it in. It's normal, it's usual. So at day 365, I'm booking myself in to come and see you. You bought a property through me and I'm interested. What have you done? What other help do you need? And yes, I'll give you an up-to-date valuation as well. Okay, now you've become friends with your neighbours, Matt. Who's selling in the road next?
Yeah.
Who needs some help from an estate agent? Yeah. So that's the 30, 60, 90, 365.
We sorry, we just had a really interesting one. So we sent the I have an automatic email goes out to people that have bought and so on. So it was, and again, I think a lot of agents always deal with the purchaser. So it's always the person that bought through you, but you actually forget the person that pays you the money and kind of moves on. So we go to both. And my past seller, who doesn't live at the property anymore, they've come back to me and said, thanks for reaching out and thanks for your email. I don't think I told you, but I also own next door.
Wow.
And we rent that out. Can we do that? So again, it just shows you there's extra business even out of your client. So yeah, there's recommendations, but people also own things they don't always tell you about. So there's always extra business there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with the landlord one, we designed something that was slightly different to that. And again, I think agents are accused of having poor communication skills.
Yeah.
It's the most common complaint, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't hear from my agent. They never ring me, etc. So with landlords, I separate landlords from tenants. But what we don't do enough of is understanding that the landlord needs various touches, not physical touches. The landlord needs various touches and so do the tenants, but they need those at different points.
Okay.
So generally speaking, if you do this properly, and you've got time between the let's agreed and the tenants moving in, so generally 5 days before the tenants moving in, you're going to have contact with your landlord to say what's happening, and why it's happening. And then the day of the move in, and then 3 days after the move in, and then 7 days after the move in, and then they go into that 30-day cycle again. Okay. So your landlord is most receptive to giving you feedback. How was the service? How did you find things? Yeah. Everything's set up. The tenant's deposit's been protected. Tenants moved in, they're happy. We've shared our how-to video with the tenant, so they know how the boiler works, what days the bins go out, how to work the washing machine, how to clear the filter out, common things.
Sure.
And we've shared that with the tenant. And now we've then sent the tenant a Google review. We've done the same thing with the landlord. So it's all systemized.
Yeah.
And it's all date driven. So with the landlord, -5 days before the move in, the day of the move in, Matt, everything's fine. Tenants moved in, no problems. 3 days later, just checked in with the tenant again. They're cool about everything. They've set up their payment coming into us because we're managing it. You'll get you'll get this on this date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now's a good time to do a Trustpilot or a Google review for us, and then a further contact at day 7.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine. First statement will come in 30 days. How was it for you, Matt? It was all great, Jason. Thank you so much. It's all set up. Everything's fine. Yeah. And the next thing you'll see is the statement going in, the rent going in.
Sure.
How important does that landlord feel now, Matt?
Yeah, that's great. And what I love about that is because a lot of the time landlords will only actually hear from you when there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then that's the part, right? And listen, we all know a lot of landlords will say really they don't want too much involvement. They just want the rent to come in every day. But invariably, they only hear from their letting agent when there's an issue, when they've got money to spend out. So yeah. By kind of just that, and as with most things in life, the groundwork you do sets up the future relationship, right? So by you doing that at the start, you're going to build up more rapport. You're going to build up more trust. So then if you do have to have difficult conversations down the line, you've kind of already got that credit in the bank. So, I think that's great.
And also the important thing is, so agents would often say to me, Jason, you're just making work for me. This is a lot of work you're creating for me. And I say, okay, look at it in a different way. If the landlord knows that he's going to have contact on those days at that time, he's not going to call you in between times.
Sure.
Yeah. So actually you're in control of that.
Mm-hmm.
You're in control of that process. You explain to the landlord, here's a process that we follow that works for other landlords.
Yeah.
Landlords like that. This is normal. It's usual. It works. Mm-hmm. Are you happy with this setup, Matt? Happy with it, Jason? Great. Okay. We confirm that in an email or digitally, however you want to be communicated with. So you have an expectation. No, I know I'm going to hear from the agent on this day. Yeah. And I've got complete confidence. Yeah. So when you then call that landlord on day 7 and say, FYI, everything's great, everything's set up. Are you happy with everything? Yes, we're happy with everything. Okay. Now, can I ask you some advice, Matt? We like being asked for advice. Of course you can. Okay. What else would you do to find more landlords in this market? Now, people like being asked for advice. They'll go away, they'll park that question. Mm-hmm. And the likelihood is they'll keep that question in their head. And when they're out with friends, family, neighbors, wherever, someone happens to mention, want to move, want to sell, want to let, need an agent. Oh, you want to speak to my friend Matt?
Yeah.
You want to speak to Matt? Yeah. So it's you follow that process for a reason. And again, I keep saying this to agents and businesses, don't focus on the goal. Don't focus on the listing or the letting or finding a landlord. Focus on the processes that will find you those listings, those sales, those landlords.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And lettings just as a whole, I mean, both should be, but lettings in particular is such a process-driven piece of work, isn't it? So we have you'll have processing for your maintenance, for your rents, whatever that is. So actually, it's just another process
Yeah.
that can be put in there.
Yeah. And also my experience with property managers tends to be that they love a spreadsheet, they love a system, they love that regimented way of doing things.
Yeah.
They tend to be quite mathematical in their thinking, quite logical in their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you and I, a bit maybe we just like talking to people. We'll pick a phone up. They like a system that they can set up and is automated, and they feel really in control of that.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, I think with tenants, they're not typically treated very well. So you telling them that there is a process to how we look after our tenants, and our tenants all give us 5-star reviews because we look after them, we value that relationship, and we value them as clients. Okay, they're not paying clients, but they could be at some point. That raises their level of how they feel about, how we feel about them and how they feel about us.
Yeah, no, exactly. I heard Spencer Lawrence of Paramount, who I'm a big fan of, speaking about this. And I believe they do that in their agency. I mean, they have resident owners; they don't have tenants and landlords, which I quite like. But at the start of someone moving, they tell the to be resident, this is what we're going to do, and at the end of it, we're going to ask you for the review. So they're basically putting the pressure on themselves to do everything they said they're going to, and that results in the review, right?
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to, I think, building trust. Really, I had a post out the other day, and sadly, I think if you say you're going to phone somebody and you phone them, you're pretty much in the top 10% of estate agents, in the country. Doing as an agent, just doing what you say you will do, really puts you up there. And again, it builds the trust. So, I mean, we have it on sales. I when I'm out on evaluation, I'll tell the seller what the process is going to be. Then my team know that if they deliver that process, the seller's going to automatically trust them. So if you do have to phone them up and have an awkward conversation or have a price change conversation or direct them in which buyer to choose, they're going to trust you more because you've built that bank of trust already. So just those little simple 3 or 4 touch points really do you the world of good moving forward.
Yeah. Here, I say this a lot to people. Here's what's going to happen, and here's why it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we like that. We like the structure and we like the rules and the discipline of that. Yeah. And as you just said, with your staff and your team and the businesses you work with, then there's an expectation, isn't there? Okay. And the staff know, well, there's going to be some checking involved here. Okay, we're not micromanaging them, but we're doing it because we have a standard. We follow a standard that works. And one of the things that I try and do with businesses is I say, well, look, if you talked about your playbook for business, so the Matt Baldock playbook, estate agency playbook, you would break down all of the different parts of your business, and then you would, on a regular basis, every 90 days, you review each of those processes. So how your applicant consultation, your listing presentation or consultation, how good are your pre-calls? How good is your vendor care? How good is your price adjustment strategy? How good is your landlord management? And you'd look at all of those processes, probably about 15, and you would score yourself 0 to 10, 10 being, you're a master, you're a Zen,
Yeah.
and 0 being actually we don't have a process. It's all kind of crazy. We just deal with what's right in front of us. We just deal with the urgent, not good business. And then it gets them thinking about actually, how do we improve these processes? Do we have a client focus, or are we solely focused on profit and ourselves? And if you then review it and say, Dave Brailsford always talked about, if it doesn't make the bike go faster, we're not going to do it. So what change do you need to make to that process to make it slicker, better for the client, better for the business? So the outcome is X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
So that's what we're talking about today, isn't it? It's process. It's not exciting. It's not sexy.
But it's effective.
But it's effective.
It's effective. As you say, and the more you talk to anybody who does well, in this profession, processes and consistency, the really boring things,
Yeah.
things actually. If I always say being, consistently mediocre beats being sporadically brilliant.
Yeah.
And it does, and it just does. No, that is really interesting. Thank you. I think one thing I just wanted to maybe just go back to was at the start when we were talking about as agents we don't do it. As you were talking, something popped into my head, and I think because especially in sales where the kind of the transaction is only maybe every kind of 7 years or so. I think from the business owner's point of view, you should understand why it's important. But sometimes from the employee's point of view, I don't think they're convinced they're going to be in the job for that long, or they're going to be convinced they're going to be there for that long.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the employer kind of knows that. But I think the way the world's changed now, with especially kind of the self-employed model, for want of a better phrase, coming out there, and personal branding being so important, I
Yeah.
would say what we're discussing is really important to both the employer and the employee. The employer because it's your business, and the
Yeah.
employee because it may one day be your business. So, if Mrs. Smith is going to come back in 7 years, you want her to come back to you, Jason. And if you're still at ABC Estates, fantastic. But if you've gone and started up Jason Estates, you still want her to come back to you. And
Yeah.
that's why I think, regardless of, because, rather than, it's not my business, I'm not sure I'll be here. If you're going to be in agency for a long time, you
Yeah.
want to make sure the relationship is you.
Exactly. And that's why I say it's a 20-year plan, Matt.
Yeah.
It's a, what's your Northern Star in the next 20 years?
Yeah.
When Messi as a 16-year-old said, here's my 20-year plan, and this is what I'm going to do every day, follow these processes to make me the sum of that person in 20 years' time. He had to do the boring stuff every day, but he knew he was going to be around for 20 years,
Sure.
or at least that was the plan. And you're right, businesses, they don't accept or they ignore that because they say, well, on average, our staff stay for 24 months.
Yeah.
So what am I helping them? Am I helping them build a business for themselves in the future? Do I need to do this? Because what I've always done has always worked. I can be transactional. I can be the listing model and not the sales model, and I still do okay out of it. But I do think you're right with the you look at the huge amount of agents now that are business owner agents.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the term self-employed. They're
No, no.
business agents. I keep pushing back against that, but everyone ignores me on it. Maybe it's just me, Matt. I don't know. Because being an agent isn't just about selling properties or renting homes. It's about business, isn't it? You've got to
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
think like a business owner. And when you start to think like a business owner, you start to predict the future. And I said this to Simon Gates a few weeks ago. What will your future self thank you for? I guarantee your future self will thank you for following a process that enables you to still be in contact with those buyers and sellers in 20 years' time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing, just to finalize, is a lot of time agents, and myself included, because while I am a business owner, I am still that stereotypical sales estate agent. And so let's say I'm, we've got the nurture journey going really well on the anniversaries, and now I'm thinking, so as I'm, here getting the evaluations come in today, I found another landlord, and I'm thinking, Jesus, why hadn't I been doing this years ago? And I think a lot of agents get in that mindset where it's almost, oh, it's too late to do it. I haven't done it, but I always go back to that old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's either 50 years ago or today. And that was so the title of my post, you'll need a listing in 5 years. That's the key. So I personally would say to anybody, don't get hung up on what you haven't done. Just, start now.
Yeah. The other part of this is I did a talk a little while ago to a group of agents, and I said to them that the real value in your business is not in your sales business.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be under any illusion just because you've banked 200, 300, 500 grand in sales, there is any value in that. There is no value in that.
Yeah.
Because you're building a fantastic lettings business.
Sure.
Value is in lettings.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you come to sell your business, if you decide to sell it, or somebody comes along and says, Matt, you've built a terrific business, can we buy you out? And you say, no, thank you, because I don't like your business. Another story. But if you're not building a lettings business, or you're not building it passively with someone else running it on your behalf, then when it comes to you selling that business in 20 years' time, it's going to have very little value.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, I think there's two parts to that. So the first part is doing what I've just said, building a lettings business. If you're only building a sales business, you've then got to be putting away some of that money every year.
Yeah.
You've got to be putting away 10% of that money that you make every year and investing it somewhere else to create some passive income for yourself somewhere else.
Sure.
Because I've seen this with a lot of, very old estate agents who've had good sales businesses, and then they go to sell them and nobody wants to buy it because it has no value. And then they realize, right, I'm going to have to keep working now into my 70s.
Yeah.
It's so whether you know this or whether it's something that I'm sure you have realized it because you're a smart guy. Sales is just is sales just a route to a great lettings business?
Yeah, I mean, I never like to, I'm not here to preach as such, tell what to do, but me and Neil, my brother, are firm believers that lettings is a business, and sales is a job to a certain extent. So again, when people go out on their own, and they start the sales, we speak to them, say, listen, you want to get lettings. Lettings is the boring bit, so that only comes in when it's necessary. Again, a lot of people looked at it during the pandemic, but then the market took off, so they thought they didn't have to. But my feeling is, if you go out on your own and only do sales, you've really just got a job, but the responsibility to get paid is now on you. So you've got the double pressure. Whereas in my opinion, don't get me wrong, I know there's other model with stocks and shares and that kind of thing, but the only thing I've never seen lose any value is a letting business and a letting book. So that would be my advice. I'd share that with you. If you've got to go and do your own thing, do lettings. You don't, as I say, there's so many options out there for people to handle the property management, so you don't have to get involved in all of that.
Yeah,
you can just do the fun bit. But yeah, you want to build something that has value when you finish at the end of the day.
Yeah, and also that it kind of helps with that first 5-6 months where you've got no money coming in.
Of course, your cash flow. Yeah,
it helps with the cash flow. So if you don't understand lettings, go and learn. It's not complex. Okay, legislation, licensing, compliance, yes, but go and talk to someone like you and say, can you white label this for me, please, Matt? Yeah, I can do this for you, mate. No worries.
sure.
You do the front end, the coalface stuff, and we'll do the back end stuff. And assuming you're charging proper fees, you can still make good money from it.
Yeah, you can. And actually, I mean, that's probably another conversation, but strangely, I find it's easier to charge proper fees in lettings than in sales. Lettings, you don't have to cut. It doesn't seem to be a race to the bottom.
No.
So the only people doing cheap fees and lettings are people that don't understand lettings properly. But if you come into it, you're educated, you understand, you can always hold a fee on lettings, whereas sales obviously goes the other way. But that's probably a conversation for another time.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Perfect. Jason, listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Lots of knowledge there. If anybody wants to expand it and reach out to Jason, Jason's all over LinkedIn, so he's not difficult to find. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be happy to have a chat with anybody that wants some help.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Matt. Always
No problem.